I have seen hell. 3 South Park games, and each one found a new way to hurt my soul. You know what you did! Is it any wonder then that after those games came out, the series creators refused to license it out for 10 years? It was only after that time that they allowed 2 games to be released for Xbox Live Arcade.
But it was announced at E3 of 2012 that a new full South Park game was in development and that Matt Stone and Trey Parker were working on it directly.
And that sounded exactly like what the series needed, and I could not wait to get my hands on it. Then, as it is often wont to do, life got in the way. But now, 2 years after its release, I am finally going to play and review South Park: The Stick of Truth for the PlayStation 3. Does it live up to my expectations and its own potential? Well, there's only one way to find out.
Now, The Stick of Truth was developed by Obsidian Entertainment, who may best be known for games such as Neverwinter Nights 2, Fallout New Vegas, and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. Their members include many people who used to work for Black Isle Studios, and if that name sounds unfamiliar to you, well, they were responsible for some pretty noteworthy games, such as Fallout 2 and Planescape Torment.
These guys know their RPGs.
While it was originally set to be published by THQ before their demise, that obviously put a damper on things. And for a while there, the fate of the game was uncertain, but luckily Ubisoft stepped up to the plate and allowed the game to be completed and released, much to the relief of many an eager fan. The game begins with narration from Cartman on the history of the titular Stick of Truth.
Deep in the lands of Zaron, the humans of Koopa Keep struggle to stay alive as they are attacked by the wicked drow elves of Larnia. For 1,000 years the battle has been waged, with only the bravery of the Grand Wizard to protect his human followers. But even though the Wizard King is so undeniably cool, the drow elf armies continue their attacks. They seek the humans' most treasured relic, the Stick of Truth.
Shortly thereafter, you're introduced to your character and his parents. You've just moved to town under mysterious circumstances.
He doesn't remember.
He doesn't remember at all.
That's good he doesn't remember.
And as the new kid in town, you're immediately charged with getting your ass outside and making some friends. It isn't long before you befriend Butters, who takes you to meet Cartman, the Grand Wizard of the Kingdom of Koopa Keep.
So, you are the new kid. Your coming was foretold by Coldwell Banker.
He informs you that they've been at war with the Drow Elves over the stick, and asks you to join their game in order to assist his side.
And from here, it pretty much plays out like a long episode of the show, which is exactly how a South Park game should feel. And in classic South Park fashion, it goes in interesting and bizarre directions that I honestly did not see coming.
There are multiple fantastic set pieces and a plethora of callbacks to the show that will really reward people who've been watching since the beginning. And if you have a favorite character, chances are they're going to make some sort of cameo. Now guys, if I were to go any further here, or be any more in depth, I'd be venturing into Spoilerville, and I just don't want to do that. This game's still rather new, and if you haven't played it, it really is worth experiencing it fresh.
No hall pass? Then it's time to write you a referral.
The Stick of Truth is an open-world, turn-based role-playing game. Shortly after the introduction, you're asked to design your very own South Park kid. And there are a good number of options to choose from, but unfortunately you're only given the option to play as a male character. I mean, it makes sense in the context of the story, but it would have been nice to have 2 playable genders. For the first time ever, the town of South Park is completely mapped out and explorable. You can wander around, take quests from the various townsfolk, and find items like hidden Shin Pokemon collectibles. New areas also become available as you progress through the story and unlock new abilities. It's really cool being able to see the town and interact with the denizens. And while the majority of this will be done on foot, there are unlockable fast travel points that you can access to have Timmy ferry you from point to point. You're also able to choose between one of 4 different character classes: Fighter, Thief, Mage, or Jew. The differences are in which weapons you wield and the class-specific skills that you learn. For instance, Jews learn Jujitsu.
And that's hilarious.
As I previously stated, the combat is turn-based and seems to be heavily inspired by games like Paper Mario, and they make liberal use of timed button presses that can alter your attacks or help you defend while being attacked. In battle, your options are item use, special attack, ranged attack, melee attack, magnifying glass, magic, and summons. Items can be used as a free action, so you're still able to attack on the same turn. Special attacks are class specific and cost PP.
PP. If you have a fucking better name for them, then fucking say it, Clyde!
Ranged and melee attacks can differ depending on what sort of weapon you have equipped at the time, and certain weapons have special properties and/or can be augmented, but more on that later. One commonality is that they all have 3 different modes of attack, which are activated via contextual button presses. X initiates a standard attack, square will do a strong attack, and triangle enhances the attack with magic. You'll also have to pay attention to how you're attacking as well. For example, you can't melee an enemy who's in a riposte stance, and enemies who are in a reflect stance will stop all ranged attacks. And you know, it's little tweaks like these that keep the combat from ever becoming a mash X to win affair. So, I like.
I want you to take your new weapon and, with the bravery of a noble knight, beat up Clyde. What? Kick Clyde's ass, new kid.
The magnifying glass option is there to give you information on status effects, and so on. The magic in this game is kinda disappointing. Not counting the augmented attacks, there are only 4 spells to choose from. And I'm gonna level with you guys here. When it came time to make this video, I couldn't actually find any good footage of me using magic in battle. So what you're seeing here was just captured so that I could actually show you what it looks like. In most battles, I found that my normal attacks and special attacks got the job done. I just didn't need to use it. Summons are a bit odd. They're screen clearing attacks that are limited to 1 use per in-game day each, and they cannot be used against bosses. I mean, they're fun to use and great fan service, but ultimately aren't very practical due to these limitations. I only ever really used them a handful of times to see their unique animations. You're also limited to a single extra party member at any given time. They're all mainstays of the series, and with the exception of specific story sequences, you will have them with you always. They each have their own active and passive abilities. For example, Butters is a healer both in and out of battle. It's unfortunate, however, that there are no customization options for them. And what RPG would be complete without plenty of menus to manage all your stuff? And in the Stick of Truth, this is done ingeniously through a parody of Facebook. The social media aspect of the game plays a big part in the story as well as the gameplay. You'll receive friend requests from members of the town either by talking to them, completing story sequences, or meeting certain specific criteria. And the number of friends you have unlock perks for your character, so it's actually functional. There are menus for equipping armor and weapons, and also those that allow you to augment both with various badges that you acquire throughout the game. These add special properties like elemental damage, allowing you to inflict status ailments, etc. And they made the wise decision not to screw around with any 3D renditions of the South Park art style. And as a result, there are times where it's completely indistinguishable from the show. Of course, they have the added benefit of access to the entire series voice cast as well. The sounds and use of music is pure South Park. And the score itself is heavily inspired by the Lord of the Rings films and Skyrim, which works perfectly for a send-up of these sorts of fantasy RPGs. First and foremost, the writing here is excellent. Each character is on point and utilized in hilarious ways. I mean, it's kinda to be expected when it was made in conjunction with South Park Studios.
Kinda makes you wonder why this sort of union wasn't made way back when. Would have saved us a lot of suffering.
Oh, and Spoilerville notwithstanding, there are bits of this game that I just can't put into a YouTube video. The Stick of Truth has earned its M rating, and I wouldn't want it any other way. The combat is more engaging than I expected, and completing quests for the people of the town was great, especially since the payoff was more funny moments with the cast of the show. If you want an example of how to do fan service in a licensed game, this is a great template.
Ah, jeez, I wish it were longer.
Yeah, the game's a bit short, and after a while I did run out of quests to finish. There are still Chin Pokemon to collect and a few tiny things I could complete, but I just wish the story had like another hour or so to it. But is it really much of a complaint if the game leaves you wanting more? And while I said that the combat is fairly engaging, and I do stand by that statement, it's still a bit shallow. I didn't expect Baldur's Gate here, but a few more options in the character builds would have been a welcome addition. And honestly, there isn't much reason to play this more than once, because for as good as the story is, it is linear as all get out. And that fits the theme of it feeling like an episode of the show, but a few extra endings really would have added something. Finally, and I can only speak to the PlayStation 3 version of the game, there was some odd stuttering that I noticed at times, mostly when moving to a new location. But this may not happen on the PC or the 360, so, keep that in mind. In conclusion, this is a great friggin' South Park game. The flaws really seem more like nitpicks when you get right down to it, and with the troubled development history due to THQ pushing up daisies, it's understandable why the scope isn't larger. I really should have played this years ago. And if you like South Park, you owe it to yourself to give this one a go.
After all these years, this, my friends, is the South Park game that fans deserve. You see? That's how it's done. And now I can't wait to play its sequel, The Fractured Butthole. Yeah, I probably should have seen that one coming. Well, in the meantime, I have many more games to review, and seeing as how Halloween is fast approaching, I should probably do something about that. See you then.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. I know that saying it was late is kind of an understatement, but for those of you who've been waiting, I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed already, please click the button at the top and do so. Feel free to say hi on social media and spread the word about these videos. It really does help. And as always, you're the best. Thanks guys.